myself. Take me right back to the start.
Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This is ArchiGamer92 and today we'll be playing Kill BIM. Yes, I'm so excited about this. Kill BIM is an indie game I recently found that follows Luis, a character who, actually he's the only character who appears, who looks like an architect. And we're following him in his quest to fight boredom in a homogenized built environment. Alright, so let's see the introduction of the game.
It's a Sunday afternoon. An unexpected cool breeze swept through the open window. Although the garden stood still, you could hear the leaves brushing against each other. A mild rustling noise. Louis was sitting in his office, a wooden shed he built in his back garden. It was a little oasis in the middle of a row of houses, a special place just for him. It was not a typical Sunday for Louis. He was sitting speechless in front of his laptop, trying to process what he was looking at. He had searched the word architect on Google, but his results were puzzling. What were you expecting to find, he asked himself. He had to go out and search for the truth.
Alright, so we begin in this garden shed office and we see Louis for the first time, who's he just found out how architects are being portrayed in pop culture, and in that way he questions the identity of the architect and he needs to find answers about it. And it's true that if you go online and you Google these images, what you will actually find is this kind of weird images of people wearing yellow helmets. So the first thing you need to do is to leave the house immediately. And it's interesting how a game like this uses more views than the typical first and third person cameras in order to show how the built environment can be experienced. So in this part you collect tools and commands, and the two most important are the plan, which I just picked up as you saw, and the section view, which we will see later. And both of these you can use to see behind buildings or cut through them, and that's the way you get around and you get from level to level. At this point we also collect copy commands, which at the moment don't do anything, but it's clearly used everywhere around this place. It looks like someone just copy and pasted all these buildings. Just now I'm using section because I can go through buildings. So I'm reading here, the idea of suburbia was intended in the late 19th century as a response to the needs for housing after the Industrial Revolution. So to deliver suburbia, the simple gesture of copying was used, and this kind of arraying of items, of buildings, of houses, raised the standard of living. But from a democratic gesture, I feel like it became more of a tool for quick profit. So here I don't want to reveal you too much about the gameplay because you should explore it yourselves. But with going from the plan view and the suburbs into section, you can escape this insanity of suburbia. But then you find more and more zones, and this shows that standardization in the built environment has penetrated all scales. Oh, I was about to be run over by this car. And also cost efficiency is the only driving force for all that. So remember all these copy commands that we collected? Well, now you have to use them. It shows how architecture today is stripped from thinking and has become a process of just clicking. So here it just prompts you to click and click and click just to multiply the building. You're gaining a virtual score which doesn't matter at all. It doesn't do anything. It kind of shows how we in architecture we are going in the build environment. We just want to build and build more, and we don't think about the actual quality. We are just hunting some kind of score. Now we are walking, and this is my favorite part because we see, wow, this big door. BIMland is a factory for producing buildings. So every single aspect within is just aimed towards it. And cost efficiency has driven us to digital platforms like BIM. And although BIM has some positive elements, like it encourages a collaborative model between professionals, it also associated construction very, very closely, which makes it being very heavily relied on conventions. BIM models, the way they work is that you need to use the model has to be comprised of real life information, and that means that it always needs to satisfy real life criteria, and that means that it removes abstraction from the early stages of architectural production. And what you need to do here is complete quests, which mostly involve taking a brief and then putting together building elements and then pressing buttons, which I just did here. It's all about pressing buttons, all about clicking. So the quests are very dumb at this point, but it also shows how the process of creating architecture has become mechanized and controlled by conventions. Usually the quests start from this part of the factory, which gives you a brief of what space is required. So I was stuck at this part of the game for a couple of weeks because the same things just keep on happening, just doing quests and repeating quests. And it seemed to me that the game had come to an end, and I was thinking, oh, I was so excited about this game, I really wanted to kill BIM, what happened? My character at some point even kept dying from boredom. So I searched for cheats and other solutions, and I found online that there is this other world that you need to go in order to continue to go on with the game. Parallel to BIMland, there is a parallel world which is trying to subvert it. The way you get around is that you need to dive inside one of the pools, and this is the most amazing part. I never saw this hole in the water, and you suddenly go into this cave, which I have to admit, it looks a lot like Kistler's endless house. And you have to, it's a bit complicated, you just endlessly go around here, but then you find this white light which you need to follow, and suddenly you get teleported into this empty library, which looks a bit like a ruin, but it's this amazing world. This world makes me question, why do architects dream of one world and they build another? Because this world looks very familiar, yet it's very different from the built environment. It reminds more of visionary projects, which architects have always taken as precedents, and they are a precedent to new expression and originality. In this new world, we don't talk anymore about modules, prefabricated elements which we treat as separate, but we can talk about a unified space. And architects need to reinsert into their conversation the play of light, the feel of form, color, and material. This doesn't mean that we get tied down by these references, but this becomes a rich context from which culture arises. All these projects have delivered a manifesto and new expression. With BIM, we are losing this innovative side of architecture. BIMland values more the skill of assembling together different building products rather than innovating in novel solutions. The built environment has become full of ubiquitous forms. The one-off has become a rarity. In this world, cultural value gains equal or even higher importance than the market value. And this is the point in the game that Louis realizes that he has to go back to BIMland and destroy it. And that's the really awesome part, and this is what we have been building up to. So we really need to find a way to go back. There is this tricky part in this world that because it's floating, that means that you can fall at any point from any side. And the minute you fall, you find yourself in this desert of fragments. And it's trying to tell us that this other world is not about form, it's not about expanding BIM's vocabulary to more conventions, to more fragments. Be careful. So it's like saying, be careful because you might get lost in a desert of fragments. So all you need to do to terminate the game is you need to kill him. Let's do it. Yes, I finished. That took me so long. And at this point, I thought that the game just finishes, right? But then the most amazing thing happened. Suddenly, a Revit plugin got installed on my computer. And that Revit plugin is the most amazing feature I've seen, because it disables functions that encourage standardization and mechanization. So first of all, it disables all my drop-down menus, so there are no more material libraries. There are no construction details or parameters, so you have to remake every single aspect when you design a new project. And it also disables all the copy commands. So you really have to remake everything. You can never copy stuff. The plugin also introduces pop-up questions that always ask you, is your decision driven by cost efficiency or is it led by design? That plugin forces a slowdown in the production, and it allows time for reflection. BIM is really not that bad. It's a great collaborative model to work with, but it has become a facilitator of standardization in the 21st century, and that needs to change with these small interventions. So you don't really kill BIM, but you insert these new parameters to make it better. I hope you guys enjoyed the game. Don't forget to subscribe and please give this video a thumbs up. See you next time. Next week we will be reviewing a new game called Sumakiran, and you can use my code ArchiGeek to download it from the Apple Store.